Hi everyone, this is Memento G here, and today I have another in-depth build video. So last time we looked into SSB, this time you're going to look into Charles. So I'll start with some general comments. So for pros, he's one of those rare DPSs with team attack buffs, while also doing AoE damage with his S3, which to my knowledge is only available for him. Now also, his S1 and S2 combo applies to dual attack, counter attack, and Elbrus attack as well. That provides him with a lot of damage potential. And with the right gear, he works well in both PvP and PvE. Now let's look into the cons. Being a Gemini and Knight, he starts with very low base attack. Now this connects to the second point, which is that he is one of the most difficult characters to gear, and immunity in my view is almost mandatory. Elbrus Ritual Sword is also another must. Because his S1 and S2 combo relies on chance, unless you are really well geared, he's unreliable. Now these are some general informations about resources that's required for him. When he's full awakened, you can see that his attack is still 957, which is very low. He has a marginal jump or marginal advantage in terms of crit chance, but as we will see later on, because you have to think about HP and defense for him as well, you don't have a lot of space to invest in crit chance, making it very difficult to give him enough crit chance. Maybe the bright side is, because his memory concentration is crit chance, if you have multiple Charles, you can make up for that missing crit chance. Now roles in the game. As I said earlier, he works in both PvE and PvP. For PvE, he works well in a Banshee one-shot team as a sub DPS. So basically you use him to clear stage 1 and then to deal some damage for stage 2. Now, utilizing S1 and S2 plus his Elbrus combo, okay, this is a typo, his Elbrus combo, this is very useful when facing AoE bosses. So that would require a lot of Spirit Altar bosses, G11, meaning Golem 11, Asmanic 11. Abyss 85 is also one of those unknown places where he's pretty good. And maybe some of you might not know this, but he has high morale in raids, so he can also work for raid teams. For PvP, his S2 strip can be used against enemy comps relying on buffs, so comps that have Maid Chloe, DN, or other characters that rely heavily on buffs can be neutralized. Second, with just the right amount of luck for Elbrus and counter to proc, he will deal massive damage. And by massive damage I mean that it's enough to seal him a victory. Now these are his builds according to stage of progression. For beginners, I recommend using speed and crit set. For mid-game, speed and immunity. And for endgame, counter and immunity set. Now for his exclusive equipment, 10% increase for his S2 chance is best for him, and for his artifact, Elbrus Ritual Sword is a must. Let's start with our beginner's build. You start with a speed and crit set. For artifacts, I have it based on plus 15. For exclusive equipment, assuming it's maxed attack, which is 40%, you gain 133 attack. For right side main stats, I recommend having it crit damage neck, attack percent ring, and attack percent boots. So this is where you start with, and this is a goal for beginners with a speed and crit set. Now if you look into the numbers, you realize it's not very high, but I'll break it down for you in terms of specifically how much substats you need per piece. So for attack, you need an average of 9% attack per piece, 8% HP per piece, 2 speed per piece, and 4% defense per piece, 8% crit chance per piece, and 7% crit damage per piece. Again, this is not too high, but it's also, I think, in my opinion, the bare minimum. Now let's go into the mid-game build. For mid-game build, I have him with speed set and immunity set. Again, for artifact, I have it as plus 15s because it's a 5-star artifact. Most of you, including myself, don't have the luxury of having it at plus 30. So here you go. Exclusive equipment, the same, plus attack 133. The right side main stats the same. Crit damage neck, attack ring, and attack boots. Now let's look at the gold stats. You'll have noticed that I've invested him with more damage. Now, because he's on immunity set, not a crit set, it will be more difficult for you because now you will have to work more with a crit chance per piece. So let me break down how much stats you need per piece. So you need 12% attack substats per piece, 10% HP per piece, 2 speed per piece, 7% defense per piece, 10% crit chance per piece, and 9% crit damage per piece. The main difference between the first set and the second mid-game build is the earlier build was just utilized or built for Charles to deal sufficient damage. The mid-game build is built for you to have him with more damage but also immunity, so that especially in RTA or certain PvP settings that he's able to defend himself from certain debuffs that makes him very weak beginning from the game. Now let's go into the endgame build. Now this build is for people who are really trying to make him a monster with maximum stats possible. I recommend using a counter set and immunity set. For artifact, it's plus 30 this time, because assuming that you are capable enough to go for an endgame build, I'm also assuming that you have your artifact at least almost 24 or 27. And if you're lucky, plus 30. For exclusive equipment, it's the same, attack 14%. The right side is also the same. Crit damage neck, attack ring, attack boots. Now let's look at the gold stats. You would have noticed that I haven't given him speed. Now this is not because speed is not required, but rather, in my opinion, it's incredibly difficult to give him a lot of speed. So for attack, very high compared to the previous two builds, higher HP and defense, and more crit damage, right? This, as you can see, makes a very demanding substat per piece picture. So for attack, you need an average of 16% substats per piece. You need 12% HP per piece, 10% defense per piece, and 10% crit chance per piece, and finally 13% crit damage per piece. Because this is on counter set and immunity, you would have noticed that you missed out on a lot of substats. So that's why these numbers become so demanding. But again, as I mentioned earlier, if you have more than one Charles, with memory concentration you can make up for some of the crit chance requirements. And again, for endgame players, I think this is not the best you can do. If you can add more HP, speed, and defense, that would be wonderful. If you can't, that's also fine, but this is what I recommend. I've also seen certain Charleses that has almost 16 to 17k HP. Now those I find in RTAs above gold. So I'm guessing that there are some monsters out there who are able to make him stronger, faster, with more damage. But this is the bare minimum that I think qualifies for you to call your Charles an endgame built Charles. So that's all for today. Today we looked into 3 stages of an in-depth Charles build. This was made with my friend Leo from Korea. And we would like to note that this is a recommendation. It's not a set answer. I don't think and we don't believe that there are set answers for builds in this game. Okay, so I hope it serves as a signpost for you to look into what stats you want to build and what stats you think you can give up on. The next video will be on S.Tenebria. As most of you probably know, she's now going to have a buff soon. I think it's due on the 20th of February, right? So that will be coming up soon as well. So I hope you enjoyed the video, and Memento out.